Let's get started. I'm here with a new friend of mine, Joshua Driskell with Lagerlof Law Firm in Pasadena. And I recently came to know Joshua because he was the attorney on a real estate transaction. And anybody that knows anything about real estate, we always think, oh, great, let's just get an attorney involved. And here we go. I think I mentioned that to you. And it turned out to be a really pleasant experience. I felt like you operated just like a top-notch realtor would. And so it was just a wonderful experience. And so I then became to know you a little bit more and started researching your company and found out that you do a lot of stuff other than just whoops, what happened? That you do more stuff than just transact in real estate, right? You do a lot of stuff. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your company?
Absolutely. So, as Teresa mentioned, we got to know each other on a recent transaction. And, I know anytime I get the call from the lender when we're doing this type of work representing buyer or seller, it's always to make sure that I'm not going to blow their deal up. And, thankfully, that didn't happen here. Teresa and I got to work together. It was really, really fun. Mm-hmm. But the type of work that I do on a regular basis, I do a lot of estate and trust work, a lot of, clients passing properties to their kids or just general, estate matters. A lot of real estate related transaction work, disputes as it relates to real estate, title issues, those kinds of matters, and then some corporate work. Corporate and tax. So we're really a full-fledged, business law firm. We've got just under 50 attorneys and about 100 total headcount. So if it's not me that does this work, it's somebody, on my team that can jump in and get it done. So it's a lot of fun.
When I was researching your company, one of the things, I love history. I'm obsessed with history. And on your guys' website, you had like this timeline of all the partners. And I think, like, when did your law firm start? Like in the late
1908. No, 1908.
1908. Yeah, 1908. And then it says you guys have over 1,000 years of combined attorney experience. So that's really something.
Yeah, no, we're one of the oldest law firms in LA County, which is where we operate. And really a deep history as it relates to this community and legal work and real estate and estate and trust, and that kind of work has been at the forefront of what we do here and has been since we started.
Wonderful.
So there's definitely a deep bench of knowledge, which is great. So if I don't know the answer, somebody knows the answer.
And then like another tidbit, so you too are a history buff and are. Tell me again what it's something with the Pasadena Museum of History.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm a trustee with the Pasadena Museum of History, Pasadena's Attic. And it's really essentially a great facility in Pasadena. There's a mansion property that is available for tour. There's a history center, and it really focuses on history of Pasadena, history of the San Gabriel Valley. And I've been on that board. Yeah, it's really great. Anybody that wants to go, reach out. I'm happy to connect you. Great local museum. And it's also the headquarters for the Tournament of Roses museum store. So if you're looking to buy anything for, Tournament of Roses related or, tickets to the parade or all that kind of stuff, you can do it at the museum, which is awesome, at their gift shop.
First, let's go into the inheritance issue. It came on my radar last year because I voted for something, and I always read all of these bills, Joshua. Like I get that pamphlet, I read them, and then I really liked the wildfire angle. I think it was like Prop 19, where they had said that when people are displaced, there were so many people displaced in Northern California that for them, if they were under 55, that they could keep their tax benefit. And that tugged at my heartstrings. And there were a couple of things in there that I thought were, pretty much normal. Right. And for those of you that don't know, California has this really great thing that for people that are 55 or older, if you sell your primary residence and buy another primary residence, there's a tax basis exchange that you can do, which is really cool. And in line with that, what happened was in that bill, somewhere tucked away, was taking away all of the Prop 13 rights between transfers of parents and children and future taxation. And I thought that that was all the way eliminated, that you didn't have any more tax exclusion until one of my friends, Johnny Shepard, had a situation he brought up to me. And I said, oh, yeah, they did away with that. He checked with his attorney and they did not do away with it. So can you explain to my viewers that when you're inheriting a property or going to sell a property or transfer a property, what is going on with that right now, and what can people do to protect themselves?
Well, you're right in that Prop 19 really changed the law and the landscape as it related to property in California. It used to be under Proposition 13 that a parent could pass a property to their children, and if it was the primary residence, there was an unlimited exclusion for reassessment. For those of you maybe not in California, or even if you are in California, California's tax scheme as it relates to property tax is very different than many other places in the country. For California, right, the amount of tax is set at an artificially low level typically. It's only when a property changes ownership is the tax reassessed to fair market value. Many other places in the country, there's a routine and regular reassessment of property tax to kind of keep property tax in line with the value of property. California, that's not the case. Let's say that you bought a property in 1995 and you bought it for $200,000 and that's your assessed value for property tax purposes. Well, that 200,000 is only going to grow by a few percent each year, over what it was. So if you own a property 20 years, your reassessed value might be 300,000. Right. So, but maybe the value of the house is really 1.5 million at this point. Right. So you're paying tax on a much lower level artificially because California is keeping it low under Prop 13.
Got it.
Well, and it would only be if you changed ownership with that property, did the property tax get reassessed, right? So if you sold that house to me for 1.5 million, I don't get to keep your $200,000 property tax. I have to pay it 1.5, right? So in the past, under Prop 13, you could pass that transfer. So if I was your child, you could transfer that house to me and I would get to keep your same old property tax, the $300,000 or whatever it is. So much, much less, very expensive change. And, so very much a benefit.
So on this $1.5 million example, you buy a house in California, it's taxed annually. The tax would be approximately $18,750.
Yeah, that's about right.
Versus a $300,000 house, the taxes would be, maybe like $3,000 or $4,000, or let's say $4,000, somewhere like that.
Okay. Exactly.
Now, if you were going to leave, I have a house, I'm going to leave to my sister. Is that a good chain, or does it have to be parent to child?
No, it has to be parent to child or grandparent to grandchild, assuming that the parent in the middle between grandparent and the grandchild is deceased.
So it's the child. So that's the link.
It's a child.
And
it's always been that way.
It can be child to parent?
It can be child to parent as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I have this $1.5 million house I'm going to leave to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give that to her now or when I'm deceased, correct?
Well, either way, you can give it to them now or you can give it to them when you're deceased. There's many reasons why you may not want to give it to them now that are outside the property tax realm. There's other tax reasons why you might not want to make a gift of it today and wait until you pass away. But you could, right? But under Prop 13, if it was your primary residence, it didn't matter if the house was worth $20 million, $5 million, or $20,000, it was excluded from reassessment. Now under Proposition 19, it has to be the primary residence. So, I should add, with Proposition 13, you could do the primary residence at an unlimited level, but you could also do other property up to $1 million of assessed value and not change it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so think about it like, you have your primary residence, but then you have a triplex, right? and that you charge rent on and all of that stuff. You could have gifted that property to them as well and kept that same property tax. Now you cannot do that. It's only primary residence. So under Prop 19, the new rules are primary residence of mom and dad, or mom or dad, to parent to child, right?
Okay.
And that's still an okay transfer. It does not generate reassessment so long as it was your primary residence, and within 1 year of the gift or the transfer, it becomes the child's primary residence.
Got it.
So they
that's
have to
really
move
important.
in. That's a huge distinction over what used to be the case. It's also no longer unlimited. It's limited to $1 million. And the way that they do this analysis, let's go back to our example of 300,000 and now 1.5, right?
Got it. Okay.
So let's say that you are my parent. You're going to give me this property, and your tax basis, your assessed value is $300,000.
Okay.
And you give it to me, and the assessor looks at it and they say, okay, well, it meets the requirements of a parent-child transfer. All the forms are there. Teresa is mom and Josh is child, and Josh is claiming to be moving into the property or have moved into the property. That analysis is done. Check, right? Then the next thing they look at is what's the difference in assessed value. So if they look at the fair market value of the property and they say, okay, well, it's really worth 1.5 now, they will apply a $1 million credit against that property tax change. So the way that they look at it is if the swing in value between what the assessed value is and the fair market value is $1 million or less, they will allow you to keep the prior property tax. If the swing in value is $1 million or more, it's $1,001 or more, right? Okay. Then they give you the $1 million credit. So in this example, right, the house is worth 1.5, you have an assessed value of 300. There's a $1.2 million difference between those two numbers. So they would reassess the property to 1.2, and then they would subtract $1 million from that. So that would be my new assessed value.
Say that again. So current assessed value is 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the parent is paying, but the actual value is 1.5. So you took 1.5 minus the current value and then came up with 1.
Well, you would in effect have a tax reassessment of 500,000, right? Because they're just basically giving you $1 million credit, right? So that difference is 1.2. That's more than $1 million. So they reassess it to 1.5, then they apply the credit. So you don't get to keep. In this instance, I don't get to keep your $300,000 tax basis on a $1.5 million house, but I do get to get a $500,000 tax basis on $1 million house. So it is still a value. It requires a little more jumping through hoops, right? It has to be your primary residence, has to be my primary residence. If I ever move out of the house, technically I can get a reassessment, although we haven't seen the counties doing this yet.
So in my rudimentary sheet, your 1.5 million property, the market value is 1.5. You credit to $1 million. So then the tax basis is off $500,000 then is what the child is going to pay, right? 500.
Correct.
Pay assessed value. So we're at the 1.5, we said it was 18,750 at 500,000, just roughly 500 times 0.125 is 6250. So that would be 6250 tax amount.
Yes.
So it is, from 18, you're 18,750.
Still a savings.
62. It is good, but where you really get the shaft is if your parents or child, had some significant assets, or maybe had like a $4 or $5 million house. I know in Orange County, there's a lot of people trying to overturn this because that generational wealth they're having a hard time transferring that.
Yes.
Because it's a $4 million property. How are the kids going to be able to even keep it? So it's almost like a forced sale situation that's happening to people right now.
Yes, that's exactly right. And with the $4 million, example like that, in the past that would have been completely covered, no reassessment, all of that. And there are efforts to overturn this. I don't think there were enough votes or enough signatures on a ballot to get it on this
Really?
November, but I think there's going to be more coming. The issue is I don't think there's been enough bad result.
Well, people don't.
Enough people
Yeah,
haven't seen it.
it's not. They're not aware of it as much yet right now. I don't think
Correct.
people.
That's right.
They just slipped it right in, and a lot of people don't even know.
Well, most people didn't understand what it did, including the people that thought they did, right? And California Association of Realtors certainly put a lot of money behind Prop 19. And I think the reason for that was because it's going to result in a lot more sales. There's no doubt, right? Because people are not able. They're not able to keep it.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't. The thing is, like, if you're, in the past, right, it almost always made sense to kind of keep the house that you inherited from mom and dad, rent it out because the taxes were so low. It was like free money. Now, if you're paying 20 grand a year in taxes and you're only making 25 grand a year in rent, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Now, I put this slide up on the screen where it talked about Prop 19 allows homeowners over the age of 55 to keep a better tax rate. And then we talked about the transfer of primary residence, that is the only way to do it. So if it's any other properties, you can't do that. And what does Prop 19 mean for inherited property? A child or children may keep the lower property tax base of the parents only if the property is a principal residence. Then the next one on here was, how does Prop 19 affect inherited property in a trust? Is there any difference if you're transferring this property in a trust, or any more advantageous things you can do?
Not really. One thing that some clients do, a general revocable trust, like most people think of when they think of trust, does not have any kind of component here that would change this. The change is in potentially using LLCs instead of, you can use LLCs to kind of get around this in a few ways. It's not bulletproof. It does add cost and complexity, but there are options. And that, that's, people can certainly reach out to me. I can kind of go over that, but because it can get very complex in the way that we do it. But it is an option, utilizing an LLC potentially to avoid reassessment here.
Is there a benefit for people to, let's say you have elderly parents and they have a primary residence that that you're going to inherit. Maybe they have a will, but they don't have a trust. Is there an advantage to getting yourself added onto title now to just make sure that you have access to that property, or any?
No, because it's going to generate reassessment now potentially. Because unless it's your primary residence right now, you're gonna reassess 50% of it, even though mom and dad are still in there. So those are the kinds of results that I think people are going to start to see, and it's going to start to look at, and that's what we call like a poor man's probate. That's usually never advised anyway, to just add a child to title. One, because it changes the basis that child has in the asset, and it can make it more expensive when they go to sell it in the future because of capital gains, which are almost always more expensive than the increase in the property tax. Okay. So you don't want to trade one tax for a much worse and more expensive tax.
Okay. Well, I think that's all I have on that. So basically, it's not
big changes. You just got to be aware. Anytime a person or client is saying, "Hey, I'm just going to add my kid to title, or I'm going to transfer it to my child, or whatever," your antenna should be up. You should be thinking like, "Okay, well, wait a minute. You need to go talk to somebody, because this may trigger a reassessment that is unintended, and the assessor is not keen on reversing these. I mean, if you made the transfer, you made the transfer. Good luck getting them to to take it back.
LA County, I hate to say it, but gosh,
they're all bad. It doesn't matter if it's LA County or Orange County. I mean, it is the law of the land. Okay. Yeah, it's the law of the land at this point, and the assessor has limited ability to do anything.
Well, I like your advice where you said, and that's why we offer advice to a limit when it's legal stuff affecting, taxes, situations like that. We always tell people, you want to get an appointment with an attorney. And I think a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, they have a feeling like it would be so expensive. It, would be cost prohibitive. But what does it cost normally if somebody calls you up and says, hey, can I get on the calendar? I want to do a consult on, adding somebody to title. Like how much?
I mean, it's a minimal. I mean, you're talking a couple $100 for something like that, right? Even if there's even a chargeable event, sometimes we don't even charge for something like that if somebody just has a quick question. But generally speaking, right, I think there is it's worth it. Even if you spend a couple $100 talking to somebody like me and they advise you, hey, don't do this, you're about to step into a landmine. The 200, 300, $400, whatever it is pales in comparison to whatever the increase in property tax is going to be.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for all of that amazing information. My name is Teresa Tims. I'm president of TDR Mortgage, and we like to have guests on that can offer insight and assistance to people when they're looking to do things with real estate and mortgages. So thank you so much for giving us all that great information. And if somebody wanted to contact you, Joshua, what would be the best way for them to do so?
They can always go to our website, email me, lagerlof.com, LAGERLOF.com. I'm listed there. Shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk about any of these issues and see how we can help. Okay.
I'll put that information in the video when we do that. And if you'd like information or assistance with mortgages, call or text 909-920-3500, and we are happy to help.